Hey, good morning, John. This is a quick demo video for you for your Arcann Saber by Shadowfoil Props and Corbanth. This is installed the CFX that you wanted. You had forgot to send me the CFX and parts along with the Saber. No big deal. I had some in stock, so when those come, I'll just keep them. All right, but this installed the CFX. Of course, you've got a crystal chamber here. It has a 28 millimeter Smuggler's Outpost dark side speaker in it. It's something that you can't see, but it's located down in this area, something that you and I spoke about. All right. This has a 2-button setup, so you've got 2 small brass tactiles here. You got one here, and then you've got one over here. When you're holding the saber upright, or when the tactiles are facing up, the switch on your left-hand side will be your power, and of course the other one will be your auxiliary. All right, I got your blade plug out for now, but you can see you've got a Carl Chen V4 lit Neopixel connector in there, and I'll show you that better here in a second. But I wanted to show you that even with the chassis in, your blade plug sits nice and flush. All right, so we'll go ahead and leave that out for now. To get the chassis out, it's a fully removable, right? So come over here. You have to unscrew the ring on the pommel here. Excuse me. Unscrew the ring. You can kind of see your sound venting holes when you do that. It's a tight fit, right? So what you're going to want to do is a mixture of pulling on this piece right here, pulling back on it, and then I like to try to assist it a little bit by pushing on this piece that's in here. Try not to push on the pins though. You can just push on the side where the chassis is holding the PCB. And when you push it about that far and you get it to stick out about like this, you can go ahead and gently just pull it out. All right, so we'll pull it out here. We'll go over this. This is a very unique setup. All right, everything comes out of the Saber. So what you've got is your speaker area back here. You've got your crystal chamber. This crystal chamber is wired up to the LS2 pad on your CFX, so you can make it do something different. I've got it pulsing while the saber is off, and then when the saber turns on, it will match the blade color, just depending on what you change it to. All right, but moving up, you've got, well, let's start here. You got these 2 button head screws. So these 2 button head screws act as a chassis retention. They hold the chassis to this piece, and then this little hole in between the 2 button heads right here, there's a grub screw underneath there. That's what locks in the crystal chamber to this metal sleeve. So you actually reach in there, you unwind it or you untwist it, and that grub screw pushes up against this piece here, and it locks everything in place. So you don't really want to mess with any of these. All right, and then it just says Solo Sabers over here for me. Didn't go too crazy with the chassis because it's a tight fit, right? It barely fit a CFX. I didn't know if I was going to do it, and then at the last minute, I saw I could, so we went ahead and did that. This does have a removable 18650, so it is a full-size battery, and it's removable. You got your 2 tactile switches here. If I can get this to focus, so you got 1 tactile here, 1 here. You'll notice how there are grooves running from the tactile switch all the way to the emitter piece, right? That is 2 grooves on each one, because your plungers on the Saber sit into the socket just a hair, so those are for those to ride into. All right, and then you've got 1 more groove up here on top of the board, because there's 1 more screw that is riding inside of the emitter of the ID, right? So I needed some clearance for that, so no biggie, we got that there. And of course your CFX. Now your CFX is glued down to the shelf, okay, because there's barely any material on the sides holding it in. But I made sure there's just enough room to take out your SD card so that you can do some programming or change whatever sound fonts you want to change. All right, so just enough room there. You don't have to lift the board. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll throw a battery in this guy. I did take the sticker off my battery, which I won't be sending you. So if you have one, like a brand new Keep Power, because that's what this is, I'd go ahead and take the sticker off of it. All right, so we'll slap that in there. After your boot up sound, you'll notice your crystals pulsing. All right, and then to put this in, you have to put it in a certain way. So you'll notice you have 2 windows on this crystal chamber. All right, think of the middle bar in between those windows as the top of the saber. You want to line up the top of the board with that rib in between your windows, basically. All right. When you get to right here, it is very important that you take your time, because this thing has to go in exactly straight so that it matches that diameter change. As you can see in the chassis, there's a diameter change right here, and this is a snug fit. It's meant to be a snug fit in there, but if you don't put it in perfectly, it's not going to go. So don't force it. All right, just take your time when you get to that particular spot and go in. Another thing that makes it tight is those two button head screws and that one grub screw that's a chassis retention for your crystal chamber. It pushes up against the inside of this cylinder to lock it all in, but of course when it does that, it bows it just a little bit. All right, so what you want to do is just take time, is what I'm saying. All right, when you get to a certain point, you'll notice that you have, if I can get my camera to focus, on this piece right here, you have that little nub right there. You can see that rectangular nub, and 180 degrees from that, you have another one right here. It's going to be hard to see on camera. You can almost see it right there. You see that little groove, that hole right there, and then there's another hole right there next to my finger. Those little indentations line up with those holes, and it has to be pushed in perfectly. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. If you get it right, I'll show you. They line up, you know, they line up, lines up with this piece right here. Just push it in just like that. And then we can come over here and finally put our ring back on. Just screw in the ring, holds it all down, and then we can come over here and hit power. So your LEDs are firing up. It's a nice smooth swing, right? And then of course your auxiliary over on the other side. If we hold it down for blade lockup like you do on CFX, you'll notice that in your crystal chamber as well. All right, and you do have twist off. So I gave you twist off. We'll go ahead and we'll put a blade in this guy. This takes a 7/8 inch blade. You do have 2 blade retentions. There's small grub screws. So you've got one that's located, the shinier the hilt, the harder the camera likes to, the harder it is to get to focus. But you got that hole right there, that's one. And of course, right there, that's another one. All right. Oh, this is my test blade, but it is set up for a full length 1 inch diameter blade. You know, a blaster bolt deflex is just tapping the auxiliary button or holding it down for blade lockup. And this one moves. Right, so vertical, it's next to the emitter. Horizontal, it'll be out towards the blade tip. That's why you can't see it on my test blade. Good flash on flash. Change color. So on this, how I have it set up right now, you just hold down the auxiliary and twist your wrist. You change color. So now you've got a blue blade. The crystal will match. Green blade, green crystal, and so on, right? We'll do it again. Orange blade. All right. And we'll twist it off. And then you have of course, the stock font package. I went ahead and I left on there for you. We'll break that down. I'm not going to put your blade plug in yet because I like to put my finger in here to assist me in taking out the chassis. But again, when we're done, you can come over here and unscrew your ring. All right. Pull on this crystal chamber or this silver piece right here. And at the same time, kind of push on the emitter, but don't push on the rings. Get it just like that. And then just pull it straight out. All right. The tightest part of this chassis is going to be this area right here. Getting past this area right here, because this has your 2 button head screws and it has that grub screw I was telling you about. That's a chassis retention. All right. But you get past that, you're fine. And then when you want to take your battery out, do it from the positive side. You should be able to do it with your finger. All right. But that is basically your Arcann saber. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will try to get this out in the mail to you today. Thanks.